I have been pleading for the Toronto Raptors to solve this one issue, as Toronto has proven to be a very talented team early on in this season. Scottie's been awesome. The trio we have on the wings has been amazing. And even Jakob, when healthy, has been able to do the things that are needed for this team to be competitive. But there is one glaring issue that so far this season has been the pinpoint thing Raptors fans can look at and say, hey, that is the reason this team isn't in the upper echelon, the upper tier of Eastern Conference squads. And what is it? Well, I've been sounding off on it for years now at this point, but especially over the past few months, and I'll bring it up again. Most people that have been watching the channel know what this issue is, but the Raptors do not have any center depth. And you go into a game last night against the Philadelphia 76ers, and this is a case study that is going to happen over the course of the season. It's the reality with any NBA team. Their starting centers are going to miss time with injury. There are very few centers out there in the NBA that are, one, really good, like quality starting centers out there in the NBA that can actually stay out there on the court consistently over the course of an 82-game season. These are big men. They get hurt. It's the reality of whatever's going on. I'm not blaming Jakob. I think this guy's been fighting like a dog to play out there between these back issues that he's been dealing with early on in the season. This is not shade or like, oh, we need to fix the Jakob situation. Poeltl's not the issue right now, but the lack of front court depth is, because Colin Murray-Boyles and Sandro Mamukelashvili has been amazing for the squad. We'll talk about them in this video, but they are more naturally power forwards, and they are undersized to face off. I know Mamu's tall, but is just clearly out there on the basketball court, not someone that's going to be a rim protector when you're facing against the Victor Wembanyama's of the world. This last night, the Joel Embiid's of the world, who, even though is a step slow so far this season, they're not going to be able to do it. And the Raptors just gave away a game where that was very, very winnable. If Jakob was out there in this game was going to be won by the Toronto Raptors. We lost to the Philadelphia 76ers, despite the fact this team, had some runs. It was competitive, even though the score had a slight differential. The Raptors were back and forth over the course of this game, but it is clear out there in the numbers. It is direct. It's easy to point out. The Raptors actually played very good defense. They were actually very effective out there on the offensive end, knocking down 42% of the three-point shots, as we have been over the course of the season. But we got absolutely stomped out there on the rebounding battle, despite the fact we shot a very, it was a better field goal percentage for the Sixers, but a part of that was a lot of their points came out there in the paint, but we got stomped out there in the rebound battle, and it's solely off the fact that, our starting center, again, whatever you want to call the positionless play, but our replacement for Jakob out there in the starting lineup last night was Ochai Agbaji, who is a 6'7" wing that is more naturally a shooting guard, and more naturally, a guy that's more likely to play point guard than he is to play center out there on 99% of NBA teams, even though he's not a point guard whatsoever. But just given his size, that's something you feel more comfortable about. Of course, Scottie Barnes ended up taking a lot of the load out there guarding Embiid when they had those starting minutes. But this is not going to work. You're going to lose games. You're sacking games. You're throwing games if you are planning on running shooting guards out there at the center position. Now, I am less fired up. I'm less frustrated as I was earlier on in the season because it was so glaring, so devastating, and Jakob being back has eased my emotions a little bit. But Bobby Webster, if we are going to be competitive, you can't be sacrificing games like this. We are not the Toronto Raptors of the late 2010s. We are not the Toronto Raptors with Kawhi, with DeMar, with Lowry, with all these different players out there that you could throw a few wins here and there. You could try some different stuff out if you want to be a competitive team out there in the Eastern Conference. You could throw some games and be fine. The Raptors right now don't have that level of talent to where you could just throw games if Jakob is not playing, because that's essentially what they're doing with this current roster construction. And right now, the Raptors are 8th seed in the Eastern Conference, 5-5 so far this season, and just 2.5 games out of first place. Like, the Raptors are in phenomenal position right now to go on a little bit of a run. I am very, very encouraged with how this team has been looking over the course of the season. Do not take this as a frustration video out there against the Toronto Raptors, but Jakob has been looking way better in terms of the games he's actually playing over the past week or so. Of course, it was a back-to-back scheduled loss. I'm not worried about the loss, but long-term, I am worried about this team throwing games, losing, not purposely throwing games, but quintessentially throwing games by not having a center when Jakob is going to have some off nights. If Jakob has a 2-week injury, we might be in a little playoff battle with whoever the heck we are in. And it could be the difference between being a play-in team and an actual playoff team. But if we throw 2 weeks, we go 2-5 or a third, a 2-week stretch, like that is going to be the difference in the season. The Eastern Conference, not nearly as competitive as the Western Conference, but all teams are close. All teams are tight. It is wide open for the Raptors to take some opportunities to, be an upper echelon team out there in the Eastern Conference. But it can't come with scheduled losses, like guaranteed L's, which happens when you're running a 6'6", 6'7" guy out there in terms of your starting center. It's not going to work. It's not going to work for your team. It's a recipe for disaster. We tried it after the 2021 playoffs where we had some effective moments out there against the Boston Celtics running a small ball 5 lineup, and it can work for stretches. But over the course of an 82-game season, it's something that needs to be fixed. And the Raptors refuse to fix it. They need to fix it. I don't care how good this team is looking. And the glut we have at this position, it's clear. You trade one of Ochai Agbaji, Jakob, Walter, or Gradey because you're not getting the most out of those guys anyways. I like all those players. I think they are good, high-quality basketball players. But they can net you something out there on the open market in terms of getting some value out there at the center spot. Get yourself a big man, and the Raptors will be in a good place. Because if we actually take a look at this game, right? If we take a look at this, the Toronto Raptors were in a really good spot. I mean, the starters played well. There were moments where there was a lot of three-point shooting in this game. The big three the Raptors have right now, Scottie Barnes, Brandon Ingram, RJ Barrett, all were fairly efficient. All were able to put the ball on the floor. Brandon Ingram had a little bit of a weird night. That was just a really bad look for Brandon Ingram. And again, this is getting spun certain ways by certain people. Some people are just completely ignoring it, which I think is a little bit twisted. But some people are running with it and saying, going absurd directions, questioning Brandon Ingram as a person, saying trade him, do all this, and even more extreme stuff that we're not going to get into on this video. But this objectively is a really bad look for Brandon Ingram. So I'll play the clip here right now. You can see Brandon Ingram yeets the ball out there, the water ball out there on the ground. It's filled, gets all of his teammates, Scottie Barnes, and I'll replay it here right now. You can take a look at how it hits the equipment manager, the towel guy, smokes him square in the face. And I get you're frustrated. I get playing with passion and stuff, but to not even have remorse, he's out there on the court and then other people are cleaning it all up. He's just watched them after literally welting a guy in the face. As much as I love Brandon Ingram, I've been really happy with him out there in this team system and stuff, and how there's been only positive things said about Brandon Ingram in terms of his personality, his relationship with his teammates, and everything along those lines. This is a horrific look, and I'm not going to come out here and pretend that it's something that should just be let slide and ignored and not talked about and stuff. Again, I love Brandon Ingram, not here throwing shade. It hasn't made me hate Brandon Ingram or anything like that, but not letting it slide in terms of something that is literally getting ignored by some Raptors fans that love Brandon Ingram, which I am a part of, but, definitely not taking it to extreme ways. It's a mistake. Hopefully he says something about it. Hopefully he does a public apology to that dude, because that's, if you're just welting a guy square in the face, then you have to figure that out. But getting back on the basketball side of things, Brandon Ingram had a solid game, but Brandon Ingram, RJ Barrett, Scottie Barnes were great. Immanuel Quickley, especially at the start of this game, was phenomenal, knocking down 3-point shots. 5 and 9 from the 3-point line, led the Raptors to a really nice early lead for this group. Cooled down a little bit as the game went along, but very positive game for Immanuel Quickley in this one. Definitely, I'd argue, his best game of the season so far. And off the bench, you had Jamal Shed, 9, 3, and 5, which was just great to see. Looking very, very confident out there in his 3-point shooting. CMB in this one, 12, 7, 1, 1, 2. The bench is looking good, man. Sandro Mamukelashvili, they're looking good. Their forwards and stuff. The biggest issue, this is a win. This is a win for the Toronto Raptors. They played a really strong, well-rounded game, but the issue is you're just not going to be able to stop anybody. You're not going to be able to get those rebounds at the rim if you don't have a 7-footer. And playing against a team, even like Andre Drummond scoring in the paint and stuff, Trent Watford's driving the lane. There's no real defensive impact. It's a recipe for failure if you try to go out there and just play undersized unnecessarily. So whatever has to be done, whatever moves have to be made, Bobby Webster, figure it out, because that's literally the thing that takes, especially where Immanuel Quickley's been playing better as of late. I'd like to see his defense improved. Again, Jamal Shed is still awesome out there on that, and I'm a Shed head by trade, but I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about all this in the comment section down below. I'm signing out. Cheers.